Hey YouTube, it's Ronnie back with another video on What I Make It. Today's video is going to be on the movie Silent Hill, and this movie came out in 2006. so, but before we get started, I just want to say thank you guys for coming to my channel, coming to watch my videos. I appreciate it very much. Thanks for all the likes for some of the previous videos that I've shot, and hope you guys are having a great, blessed day. Without further ado, let's get into it. Silent Hill, like I said, the movie came out in 2006. Was starring Radha Mitchell, who played the character of Rose, Laura Holden, who played the character of Sybil Bennett, Officer Sybil Bennett, and Sean Bean, who plays the husband, Christopher, of Rose. So the plot of the story, Rose Da Silva takes her adopted daughter, Sharon, to the town of Silent Hill in an attempt to cure her for her ailment. After a violent car crash, Sharon disappears and Rose begins a horrific journey to get her back. This was another movie that I saw in the movie theaters, and this one is based off a video game. I never played the game just because it looked too scary to play for myself. And it's one of those like kind of something similar to Resident Evil, if you ever heard of that video game or watched the movie. So I don't know much about the game compared to the movie, but I think the reviews were pretty good. A lot of times when these studios are making movies based off of video games, the fans want to see something that's really similar to how the game was. So a lot of times the content from the game, you definitely want to see that kind of stuff implemented into the movie. And so just based off of what I had read and then knowing a little bit about the game, I thought the directors did a pretty good job. As the movie starts, there is a couple comes out of their house. Oh, spoiler alert! I will be talking about the movie throughout this video. So if you haven't seen it, please go back and watch it. All right. So movie starts out. This couple's yelling, and they're looking for someone. So you figure at some point, they're yelling and running through the house. You come to find out they're actually looking for their child. So the mom's outside, she's running, the husband's yelling the name, Sharon, and the mom kind of like, I guess it's like motherly intuition, but she finds her daughter literally on the almost like the opposite, way far from where the home is. She's literally standing at a cliff, and you see the vision through the daughter's eyes. She's like hallucinating, where she sees someone down at the end of the bottom of the ravine cliff or whatever, and it literally looks like she's literally about to just jump down, and the mom grabs her just in time and saves her. And then the little girl's yelling, Silent Hill, Silent Hill, I have to go back, I have to go back. The dad finally catches up, and mom tells Rose tells Christopher that it's getting worse. We got to do something about it. So I thought, the little girl's probably just sleepwalking, but apparently she's been doing this for a long time. So the mom and the dad are trying to figure out like what to do. The dad says they should take her to a hospital. Take her to a hospital, have experts look at her, try to figure out what's going on. And then the mom, she's just like, no. She says there's got to be something else. Well, it's revealed that Sharon is adopted, so the parents really don't know much about the origins of Sharon, other than that she just came from an orphanage. I don't know the extent of how like the adoption process works. In terms of, from my understanding, I think they have to keep certain things private just for, I guess, like identity purposes, or it's also a law as well. So, but This doesn't sit well with Rose, and she's wanting to get to the bottom of it. So she takes it upon herself. She seeks out where they got Rose from, and there's a town called Silent Hill, which is somewhere in Virginia. And she decides she's going to go back there and try to get answers. Leaves in she tells Sharon what they're gonna do, try to figure it out. Sharon likes to draw pictures, which is an important part later on in the movie. But she likes to take pictures or draw pictures, and so they're sitting under a tree, and Rose is talking to her, letting her know, like, hey, this is what's going to happen. We're going to try to find out what's wrong and see if we can't, get things fixed and make you right, get you okay. So that way she stops having these, bad dreams and sleepwalking and stuff. So they end up leaving. They get to a town where they got to get a gas station. Well, come to find out, Silent Hill's not on the map. So she's talking to the gas attendant, and she's like, well, nobody goes there because the town's not there anymore, like, burned down or whatever. And she's like, well, how do I even get there, And so the gas attendant ends up asking her, basically, why would you want to go there, for her own personal reasons. Well, she ends up deciding to go anyway. And while when Rosa first got to the gas station, there was an officer that pulled up and just, seen what was going on somewhat, and decided to ask her what was going on, if she was okay, this kind of stuff. And so Rose kind of like, pretty much kind of like dusted her off. And so they end up leaving, and they're driving down the road, just trying to figure, this is at nighttime too, so driving down the road, trying to figure out where they need to go. Well, the sirens come on from the officer that she met at the gas station, and she pulls her over, and she's kind of like scanning the car or whatnot, pulls her over, and Rose decides to just floor it. Because she sees a sign that says Silent Hill, and then there was another town. So she figures she's close. So she just puts it into gear, hightails it towards Silent Hill, and the officer ends up having to pursue her. And so they're driving, she's high rate of speed, and as they're driving down the road, Rose sees looks like a girl walking in the middle of the road. She swerves, tries to avoid her, and ends up having a car crash. Knocks herself out. So when she wakes up, she sees that her daughter's not there in the car. The door's wide open, and the only thing that's sitting on the chair is a colored picture that her daughter was drawing. So she gets out of the car, obviously trying to look for her daughter, so she's yelling, Sharon, Sharon, she's looking for her. Well, what she notices instantly is the environment is way different. It was nighttime during the car crash, and when she wakes up, it's not daylight out, but it's basically almost looks like it's snowing, but it's not. It's actually ash, and it's just continuously falling. So she's walking around trying to find her daughter, and she starts walking through the town, yelling out her name. And then she ends up seeing what she thinks is her daughter running through the town. So she's chasing her down, and follows her all the way down to this stairwell that goes deeper, almost goes a level underneath town. And so she's yelling, Sharon, nothing happens. So she starts to walk down there. She decides to walk down, and then these sirens come on. And let me tell you, if you've ever heard sirens in your town for the first time, it's something that kind of somewhat makes you pay attention. It's a sound that you never forget. So once this happened, the sirens start going off. There's an indicator something's about to happen. Well, it does. And everything turns dark. When I say everything, I mean everything. Everything turns dark. It's completely black. She, Rose can't see. So she pulls out a lighter, and the whole environment is just like, there's dark, but then there's also like, what is this? What just happened? So she goes further down, try to find her daughter. Goes further down, and the kind of things that she ends up seeing is just it's hideous. And so she starts walking, and then all of a sudden she starts hearing like it sounds like children crying. Well, these things that start coming up to her, they're, I guess you would say, forms of children, but they're not exactly children. And so the best way I could describe them is they look like little burnt remnants of what they were, I guess. And they're reaching out for her, and she's just screaming her little lungs out. So she starts running away to try to get away from them, and they're constantly like coming from everywhere. If you've ever been in the dark and all you got is like a flashlight or a little lighter, if you're in an environment that you're unfamiliar with, you're not knowing where you're going. And so she's just trying to basically get away from these things. So she finds a door, able to get through it. Well, they start piling through the room, all to the point where she hits her head, so she's dazed, crawling, and they're just pulling away, pulling at her. And then all of a sudden, something happens, and they fade away. And so she passes out after that. And I think just for the adrenaline wore off. And she finally wakes up, and she's still looking for her daughter. So I'm gonna try to keep this video short compared to my last ones. So I'll try to kind of stick to the certain important parts of the story. So anyways, she heads goes back into the direction of where her car was. And she goes to try to find her phone. She runs into a lady who's like pretty much she's like dressed in rags and stuff. And so the woman's kind of like letting her know, you don't belong here, you shouldn't be here. And she's telling her she's looking for her daughter. And she has a little locket. Rose has a little locket with a picture of Sharon in it. So she shows the lady, and the lady's like, oh, that's my daughter. And she's like, what are you talking about? Calls her crazy or whatnot. And, she gets away from her. Well, she ends up running into Officer Bennett. And Officer Bennett basically lets her know that she's under arrest for kidnapping. The husband, Christopher, had basically called the authorities, letting them know that his wife took their daughter, and he can't find them, so he's looking for them. And so Officer Bennett was the closest one to actually seeing both the mom and daughter. So she was basically going to bring him back, and that's what the plan was. So Bennett lets Rose know that she's basically under arrest for kidnapping, and they'll have to they'll send somebody back to come look for their daughter. And so as they're getting ready to do that, they get back to the road, and there's no road. Like, the road is gone completely. Like, it just fell off. There's no road there. So they can't get back out of town. So then Bennett's like, okay, well, we'll take an alternate route. We'll go a different way. And this is the first time that Officer Bennett encounters a creature that pretty much spits out, I guess she was called hot tar. And so Rose takes this opportunity to kind of get away as the officer is distracted from the creature. She gets away and runs off. And Officer Bennett ends up, shooting whatever this thing is and kills it. And so Rose continues on her journey to try to find where her daughter might be. I'm going to kind of cut out a little bit here, but after a couple of more sirens, Officer Bennett and Rose Rose actually end up coming together. And it's basically because so many encounters have happened with the sirens and whatever it is these things are uh, in this alternate, just call it an alternate world. Um, Bennett says that, okay, I'll help you, I'll help you get your daughter back so we can get out of this place. Well, they come in contact with some people that live in the town who actually stay at a church. One of the pictures that Rose's daughter had drew was of a church that had a certain symbol. Well, we find out this church pretty much it's a cult is what it really is. It boils down to it. And they call the people that they don't know, they call them non-believers. So how they've been running the town is basically if they think you're a witch, they feel like the only way to actually solve the problem is to burn you at the stake, pretty much. Cleanse you in the lake of fire, as they put it. So they kind of get a little bit of a backstory, somewhat, on what is going on in the town. And so, Rose lets them know I'm looking for my daughter, and the lady who's in charge, she ends up letting her know that yes, the demon is the one that has your daughter. If you're looking for your daughter, she's most likely down there, And so she asks them for their help. So they say okay. And at this point, they are actually inside the church. They had to get to the church because it turned dark again. The sirens came back on. So they did make their way back into the church and ultimately asked the people for help. And so the lady said, okay, we'll help you. However, we're not going to go all the way down there with you, but we can show you where you need to go. So they get there to this building, ultimately, where I think it was a hospital. They got to this hospital, and she let her know. She showed her this map, and it basically was of all the floors, and then all the little quadrants that the bottom floor had, the basement floor. So Rose literally had to memorize this map in order to find out how to get to her daughter. And so one of the believers gives her a flashlight and tells her, you're gonna need this. And she said, and then he told her, he said, they're gonna be drawn to the light, but you won't be able to see without it. So give her this big old flashlight, which is something that in the video game you use, and as a character of Rose, you actually use a flashlight as one of your tools. Anyways, so just as she's getting ready to go into the elevator to descend down, the lady who's in charge of the cult actually had her necklace that had got ripped off in an altercation when Rose and Bennett got to the church. She opens it up and sees there's a picture of a little girl. Well, the little girl, Sharon, actually resembles this child that they ended up killing they burned her really bad years ago. It was over 30 years ago, but you find out later on. And so the lady yells out, demon, it's a child of the demon, and so everybody starts just going nuts, and Officer Bennett steps in waving her gun, and gets Rose into the elevator and tells her to go find her daughter, closes the elevator and sends her down. So Rose gets all the way to the bottom, and she starts going through the hallways, trying to find where she needs to go. And she's got it memorized in her head. And so, which I thought was really, you talk about some muscle memory for sure. So, but she's able to memorize where she needed to go. And she finally gets to the hallway where she needs to go all the way through. Well, in her way are a bunch of nurses. But these nurses don't really have faces. They're I don't know how you would describe it, but the facial features are something I've never seen before. So as she has the flashlight, she's trying to look past, and she sees the door behind them. Now there's probably about like 20 of them there, and they're all like bunched in together in this hallway. And so she needs to get by. Well, when she's flashing the light, they gravitate towards the light. Well, all these ladies are holding sharp objects. I'm talking about scalpels. One of them looked like they was holding like some kind of machete or something. But like scalpels, knives, anything sharp, they had in their hands. And so Rose understands that they're okay. They see the light, they're starting to come towards it. So she turns it off, and she's looking, and like almost like a little path had created, so she figures she can get through it. So she like tiptoes through and gets so close to one of them. One of them actually like swings whatever it was that they had and like slits one of the other one's throats. And I'm just like, oh man. Once that one like fell down, it was like a domino effect. All of them just start swinging left and right all over the place. And Rose literally ducks down onto the ground, letting them pretty much just hack each other to pieces. And then she puts a flashlight right in the middle of the floor, and then just hightails it towards the door. And so when she gets through, that's when she actually sees who this so-called demon is. And this so-called demon was a girl named Alessa, who resembled Rosa's daughter Sharon at the time, but she's grown now. Anyways, she has burns all over her body, and she's being looked over by which is a demon, but a manifestation of what Sharon looked at. Sharon looked like during that time, those 30 years ago. So it's closest thing to her. So Rose talks with the demon and finds out that what they really want is revenge on the people who did this to her, did this to Alessa. And she said, if you want your daughter back, this is what you have to do. That's all we want. She said, we can't get into the church, we can't get in there, but you can. So they actually end up using Rose as a vessel to get into the church and basically to exact revenge. And that's exactly what happens. That's exactly what happens. There's a part that takes place right before Rose goes back to the church, and the demon infuses herself with Rose. Rose goes back. They find out that they have her daughter. She finds out that her daughter was actually at the place with the lady in the rags, who ironically, the lady in the rags ended up being Alessa's mom. And so she had took Sharon in because it resembled her daughter. So anyways, the people from the cult found this out, took the daughter, and they were going to try to kill Sharon, just like they burn Sharon, just like they burned Alessa. So they have Officer Bennett captive as well, and Officer Bennett is the first one to get killed. They burned her in the lake of fire first, and then, which is basically they like tied him up, held him over a fire, and she pretty much just burned to death from the fumes and the fire and the heat and stuff. They were gonna do that same thing to Sharon, but that's when Rose got there and basically called them all blasphemers, letting them know, like, tell the truth, because some of you guys don't really know the truth, what really happened. So she's like trying to speak the truth, walking through this crowd of believers, and a lot of times if you speak against what it is they believe,